fiesta, salsa, quinceañera.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and this week I have a really fun deep dive for you guys. I wanted to talk about the failed Disney Channel actor to musician pipeline. Now, I think we're all familiar with this idea. We've seen it time and time again with Disney taking their actors, throwing them into music, whether they want it or not, and just kind of seeing what happens. This has also had really varying degrees of success. We know Miley, Selena, Demi, Olivia, Sabrina, the Jonas Brothers, all of them started on Disney, and they are mainstream musicians to this day. However, for every success story, there are also multiple failures, and that is really what I want to talk about in this video. And I want to note that this failure isn't necessarily because they didn't have the talent to be a huge pop star. It is because they either didn't want it or Disney didn't pour enough resources into developing them and really believing in their music career. We'll see this throughout the video, but Disney really missed out on some amazing talent because they just didn't do the right things with these people. I want to start by talking about where the idea for this pipeline truly came from. And I would like to believe that it actually started when Disney saw their former stars, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Justin Timberlake, really succeed in the music industry. Now, those three were on Mickey Mouse Club on Disney when they were children, but then as they got older and they were teenagers, they signed with record labels and had extremely successful careers. And in those moments, I believe Disney sat back and thought, well, if we had this talent when they were younger, why can't we hold on to them and then guide them through this industry as they got older? So Disney had owned Hollywood Records already, and they decided to use Hilary Duff as their first project to sign someone on as an actor and then concurrently develop their music career. She began Lizzie McGuire in 2001, and her debut album Metamorphosis came out in 2003, right around the time the Lizzie McGuire movie was actually released. And Disney did something really smart. During the commercials, they would play Hilary Duff's music videos for some of the singles from the album because it made sense since Lizzie McGuire was airing, the movie was coming out, so it all fit together very, very well. And because Disney found success in the way they were able to do this, Hilary Duff truly became the blueprint for Disney in the way that they were going to take their actors and develop them into musicians at the same time. Because they realized that if they could promote both, it would bode really well for their careers. At the time of Hilary's success, she was making the network a ton of money. She released 5 studio albums under Hollywood Records. 2 of them actually went #1, with the other ones being within the top 5. She had 7 songs on the Billboard Hot 100. She sold out a full headlining arena tour across the United States. And I need to give an honorable mention to With Love because of that choreo. Let me just insert it here. I do it by myself all the time in my apartment. Something about it is so funny to me because it's like, go girl, give us nothing, but it's kind of everything. And it still continues to go viral on social media every few months. But because Disney's experiment with Hilary Duff worked, they started to test this with their other talent. The next person I want to talk about is kind of my first failed Disney project in terms of the music industry, which is Raven-Symone. Now, Raven-Symone is extremely successful, but I believe she could have been a huge musician had Disney played their cards right. At the same time as Hilary Duff promoting her debut album and the Lizzie McGuire movie, Raven actually signed with Disney to start doing That's So Raven, and it aired the same year. A lot of people actually don't know this, but prior to starting her career on Disney, Raven actually released 2 albums with Crash Records. And because of that, Disney immediately signed her to Hollywood Records to record 2 albums while she was also working on That's So Raven. She released the first one in 2004, less than a year after the first season of That's So Raven, and Raven was a Disney darling. She was in so many different things, including The Cheetah Girls, Xenon, Princess Diaries 2, College Road Trip, but I believe she could have had an amazing music career as well had Disney done a few things differently, because her first album with them actually debuted at 51 on the Billboard Top 200, and that was released after the first Cheetah Girls movie, which took Disney by storm. Honestly, there was so much press and eyes on Raven and the rest of the girls after that first movie came out, so the fact that it only peaked at 51 is like beyond me. At the time, Cheetah Girls 2 was also confirmed and in the works, and Raven released a That's So Raven CD, so all of the odds were in her favor for that debut album with Hollywood Records to do well. So what happened? I think the biggest issue was when Disney saw the success of Cheetah Girls, they pushed Raven's solo career to the side so that way she could do all of the engagements that the Cheetah Girls were needing to do to keep up the momentum for the second movie. And that really sucks because Raven is super, super talented, and she was having to do all these engagements that really tethered her to this group the rest of her music career with this record company while she was on Disney. Unfortunately, her second album did even worse. It came out in 2008 and the lead single was Double Dutch Bus, which I personally loved that song. They played the music video because it was part of College Road Trip. Like, it was on the soundtrack for the movie, but it was also on Raven's album. It was a cover of Frankie Smith's 1981 song, and the way I was getting ready for school, dancing to Double Dutch Bus, like, I still know every word, I'm so sorry. Like, it was so good. And they were giving it more airtime on Disney Channel because it was also helping them promote the movie. So they were really pushing this. They pushed it to Radio Disney. They were playing it multiple times a day, but for some reason that didn't help. It peaked at 158 on the Billboard Top 200 album chart, and that is just not good for someone who is a big Disney star at that time. She was doing a show, a movie franchise, and releasing music, and it still just didn't connect with the general public, even with the little promo that Disney was doing on their channel and their radio station. I think there was a real disconnect. Disney wasn't doing a good job of pushing to the general public. They were using their resources to help Raven, but not fully because of the Cheetah Girls thing. They always had that in mind in terms of what they wanted to prioritize her in. The Cheetah Girls engagements came first. She did a Cheetah Girls tour. She never did a solo tour. Like, that is why I'm deeming this a failed music career, because I don't think Disney was able to do their best with Raven like they did with Hillary. And it's also hard because Hillary was coming up at the same time. They were pouring a lot of resources into her because she was making the network a lot of money and the record label a lot of money because of the way her music was performing, as well as the way her shows and movies were performing. So Raven took a backseat to Hillary and was given less resources because she wasn't able to prove herself with her first album. They were giving her less for the second. It's really sad though, because I think Raven is super talented. I wanted to see her do more in her music career, especially when I was younger and I was jamming to Double Dutch Bus, but it is what it is, and she is still really successful in her own right to this day. She did Raven's Home, the That's a Raven spinoff. She has a podcast with her wife. Like, she's fine. She's on The View. Like, she is booked and busy. So maybe she just didn't want the music career anyway, and this is just a moot point, but I wanted to talk about it. Going chronologically in this, next we need to talk about Ally and AJ, because this is when Disney started to deviate a little bit from their pattern. Now, between Hillary and Ally and AJ, there were a couple other people that they signed to Hollywood Records that are like literally not even worth talking about. But we all know Ally and AJ, their hit song, Potential Breakup Song, ate, and it still eats to this day. So they had a little bit of a different path. They actually signed with Hollywood Records first when Ally was 15 and AJ was 13, which super, super young. But that was kind of the norm back in the day. And they released their debut album, Rush, in 2005, which debuted at 36 on the Billboard Top 200. Now from there, they got into acting on Disney Channel. So Disney kind of did it the reverse, where they were signed to the record label and then were funneled into acting projects so that way they could promote both and they could use their name as artists to promote them in the films and vice versa. Their first single was actually a cover of Do You Believe in Magic, and it was in the Now You See It movie. I remember this playing on Disney Channel all the time and I was loving it, but it actually peaked on the Billboard Hot Singles chart at number 2, which was really, really good for the fact that they weren't in any acting projects at that time. Like, that was just their debut single ahead of their album, and it performed really well. So Disney was saying, these girls, they can make it. Disney then pushed them into some acting projects like Cowbells, where they played sisters. They had some guest appearances, and they also did a lot of songs for soundtracks for Disney Channel movies. Their third album is really where they hit their stride. It was titled Insomniatic, and this is when Potential Breakup Song comes out. It was released July 10th, 2007, and the album peaked at number 15. Potential Breakup Song was also released as the first single, and it debuted at 17 on the Billboard Hot 100, which is crazy, but I love this song, and they were actually doing a ton of promo at the time because they performed at the Radio Disney concerts. I actually saw them when I was 7 at the time, and they were amazing. but that was the album that they were promoting. They also were opening for Miley Cyrus in 2007. They did a 2-week stretch where they performed at her concerts playing covers and original songs, but only really songs from that third album and nothing from the past. Their second single, Like Whoa, which is a stunning song, you guys should go stream it, didn't do as well. It just wasn't pushed as hard. It peaked at number 63, but it still charted, which is really good. And I don't know what happened after that because the wheels really fell off, and this is what makes me sad. Because they weren't granted their own solo tour. Now, Disney was really strict about who got a solo tour and who didn't through Hollywood Records. Of course, touring is super expensive, but it was really pick and choose. And with the Cheetah Girls touring, with Hillary touring, it was really hard to kind of figure out where Ally and AJ fit into this mix. By the end of that era, their music also wasn't being pushed as much on Disney Channel like it was in the beginning of their career because they weren't playing during the commercial breaks and they weren't playing as much on Radio Disney. And they began their fourth album era, but things quickly took a turn. They wanted to change to a more rock-oriented sound. They also wanted to change their name as a group to 78 Violet, which they did for a small period of time. They did complete the album under Hollywood Records, but because there were so many other things happening at the company, they just decided to keep pushing the release date to the point where it gave Ally and AJ no choice but to just leave, and they decided to split up and get out of their contract and become independent. The album itself has been shelved, and then they had a full rebuilding period before they came back to music. And we all know that they are releasing music currently and have in the last few years, but there was a point where after that Disney era, they really took a step back and had to reevaluate what they wanted, what just happened, and what they were going to do as artists moving forward. It's hard though, because Disney really did strike gold with these sisters. They're extremely talented. They were putting out music that people really liked. And I think the promo was the issue, as we're going to see, and as we have seen so far. That is the biggest thing. When a label doesn't believe in you wholeheartedly, then they're not going to give you the resources to truly succeed. And I think Ally and AJ could have had a Jonas Brothers-esque trajectory had they been given the resources that other groups and other singers were given. Because with that rock album sound, I think even though it would have been a little bit edgier for Disney at the time, it would have been able to appeal to the mainstream and the general public, especially with people that were aging out of Disney at the time who liked Ally and AJ because they played guitar. They had, more of a grunge look to them anyway. So they could have gotten that audience that had just aged out of Disney, that kind of grew up with them a little bit. And I really feel like Disney fumbled with this. I love these girls and I think that they're so talented. Okay, next we have to talk about Ashley Tisdale, and this one makes me want to scream because I love Ashley Tisdale. I think that her music career is so underrated and people just don't get it. And there are a few problems that I need to talk about, and they're not Ashley's problem. This was Disney's fault 1,000,000%, and I'm going to tell you why. She could have had an insane career. She started on Disney in 2005 in a show that I'm sure all of you know, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, but she shot to superstardom in 2006 when she starred as Sharpay Evans in High School Musical. The success of the first and second in films allowed her to be signed to Warner Records. Now, this is not Hollywood Records, so what happened here? Disney decided not to sign Ashley. They decided to sign Vanessa Hudgens and Corbin Bleu out of the High School Musical franchise. I think they only had a certain amount of contracts to give out, and what they decided to do was grab Vanessa and Corbin, provide them with record deals, and then allowed Ashley to go outside of Disney to get hers because they were not offering her anything. And that is where I feel like they really messed up. This put Ashley in a super weird place because she was still doing Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Sweet Life on Deck, and then High School Musical 3. But the music that she was releasing around this time was a little bit edgier and they really clashed. There was a juxtaposition there that I don't think was conducive to making her the biggest star she could be. She released her debut album in 2007 titled Headstrong, and one of the singles from that album, He Said, She Said, is one of the best songs I've ever heard.
He said, she said, baby, I can see us move.
I had it on my iPod. I still stream it to this day. I think that song is so good. The production is amazing. But again, it is very edgy, especially for someone that was on Disney at the time. But she was allowed to do it because she was signed to a record label that wasn't affiliated with Disney. But she had the voice, she had the image, she had the choreo. I think the dichotomy of her doing that in her spare time when she wasn't a Disney Channel star kind of hurt because she was playing a teenage character while making music like a 20-something would. And while she was still tied to the network, she couldn't do the promo that she needed to do. Like, she couldn't do the appearances. They weren't pushing her on Radio Disney like that. They weren't playing her He Said, She Said music video during Disney Channel commercials like they were doing with Vanessa and Corbin songs. Like, because she wasn't signed to a Disney record label, they weren't pushing her as much, even though she was one of the biggest people on the network at that time. I think Disney should have just signed Vanessa and Ashley because they both could have done so much. But we'll get to Vanessa, don't worry. But I think through and through, Ashley is one of the most talented people Disney has ever hired. And I think that she could have had a Miley-esque trajectory had they signed her to Hollywood Records at the time of High School Musical instead of letting her go outside, because it caused this really weird rollout for all of this stuff. But like, even with all of those roadblocks in her way, Headstrong debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200 and in total sold 500,000 copies. She also went on a solo tour to promote the album ahead of filming High School Musical 3, which I don't know if Disney would have given her that grace to go do a tour and then come back and film. So for that, I think that maybe it was a smart move, but in general, I just feel like Disney messed up with this one. After filming High School Musical 3, she then started to voice Candace on Phineas and Ferb, and then in 2008, she started to work on her second album. The label gave her even more control because of the success of her debut, and she wanted an edgier sound. However, unfortunately, it did not have any sort of commercial success, which ended her partnership with Warner Records. But I am a believer that if Ashley Tisdale released Headstrong under Hollywood Records instead of Warner Bros., we would be having a different conversation right now. Because we talked about Ashley, of course, the next person we have to talk about is Vanessa Hudgens, who was the princess of Disney. Of course, at the time, Vanessa Hudgens was best known as Gabriela Montez in High School Musical. And as I said, I am still baffled that Hollywood Records decided just to sign Corbin and Vanessa. However, let's talk about her music career. She was really known as Gabriella, this like sweet, nerdy girl, and people loved her. So it was a no-brainer they really threw her into this musician pipeline. She had a 2-album contract, V in 2006 and Identified in 2008. Strategically, Disney decided to have these albums released the same years as High School Musical 1 and High School Musical 3. V peaked at number 24 on the top 200, with both singles Say Okay and Come Back to Me actually charting on the Hot 100. Say Okay is actually a really good song. I think Vanessa did great work with that, but it didn't do that well, which I was shocked by because she had everything kind of riding on her. High School Musical was out, they were giving her the resources to do well, and I don't know why it never stuck because I like that song a lot. However, by 2009, the album had sold over 570,000 copies, which is a big number. The Identified era, though, is where Vanessa really pops off because the lead single to that album was Sneaker Night.
Put your sneakers on.
I don't need to tell you about Sneaker Night. Like, if you have never heard it, you're living under a rock, go stream it. I love this song, and they were playing this on Disney Channel every commercial break. They were loving promoting this song. It was pushed on the channel, on Radio Disney, like they were trying to get Vanessa in the Billboard Top 100 with that, and it did peak at 88, which was a little low, but that was amazing. I believe Sneaker Night should have been top 10, but whatever, and the album itself peaked at 23 on the top 200, which isn't stellar, especially because that was right around the time that High School Musical 3 was coming out, so she had that momentum, and everyone was watching High School Musical 3 because the first 2 movies were a huge success, and people were wanting to see the closure of that story, so I'm shocked that this album didn't do better. This did mark the end of Vanessa's career with Hollywood Records, and while Vanessa has been really successful in her own right, I think that at the time and looking back, Ashley had more of that it girl factor to be a pop star, but Vanessa has an amazing voice. She put out some great songs, but I don't think that is truly what she wanted to do with her life. I think that she fits way more into the acting and hosting space, and I love that for her. Sneaker Night was a bop though, and I don't know why Disney didn't capitalize on this. Like, they have this issue of being able to get the general public to hop on board with some of their stars, and I don't know what they're doing wrong to do so. I mean, they have done it a lot, and there have been a lot of success stories, but I feel like Vanessa should have been that success story that came out of High School Musical because it was the literal biggest movie on cable at that time. Those 3 movies had so many viewers when they first came out that it just seems inexcusable to not push Vanessa Hudgens' music the way that they should have. This next person I need to just talk about for myself. Raindrops, like, we need to rise up because Raini Rodriguez, the disrespect from the Disney Channel network was crazy. I am the king of the Raindrops. I've been a supporter of Raini Rodriguez since day one, and I feel like it is my duty to talk about our queen and the way that Disney failed her, because I don't think you guys are ready for the conversation that I'm about to have with you. They never even gave her a chance. They threw her on Austin and Ally in 2011 after she had a breakout role in 2009 in Paul Blart Mall Cop. But Trish De La Rosa was the moment. In that show, she was the comedic relief, she was everything, and they only gave her a little bit of singing time. I'm gonna sing it, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so much better than you. I'm a 10, you're a 2.
I'm so much better than you.
That song went triple platinum in my house because I feel like they should have released it as a single. I'm so sorry, but that was the only singing they gave Trish in the show. They needed to give her a singing part every episode. Like, her and Austin needed some duets. Her and Ally needed some duets. She didn't need to be working at the cell phone kiosk outside and changing jobs every week. She needed to be in the studio. And I will stand by that.
You can't fire me because I quit. I quit. I quit. I quit. I quit.
Disney never actually signed her to Hollywood Records. Now, this is not a shock to anyone, but I feel like they really could have given her a chance. However, they did throw her a bone by allowing her to sing a song for the Beverly Hills Chihuahua 3 soundtrack. Vive tus sueños, aka Living Your Dreams, should have gone #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. I said it. If you're familiar with that song, it actually became an inspiration for artists like Beyonce and Mariah Carey, who have looked up to Raini for so long and really liked her artistry in this track. She actually learned how to speak Spanish to be able to convey and pronounce all of these words correctly.
Fiesta, salsa, quinceañera, bailas.
And know what she was saying. So for that, I think we need to just give her a round of applause. Of course, I'm kidding. If you've seen the online discourse about Raini Rodriguez, Beyonce, and Mariah Carey and the skinny legend of it all, we're not going down that rabbit hole. I will say though, I think Raini is really talented. I love her so much. Like, as much as I have this conversation ironically, I really think that they could have done more with her on the network. And I want to see her acting in more things. I think that she is so funny. So my parting message for this segment is just Raindrops. We need to continue to hold resentment towards Disney because they didn't give our girl the chance to shine like she should have, truly. Because she was that girl on Austin and Ally, and she deserved a spinoff. I would have watched a Trish De La Rosa spinoff, and I know you would have too. Lastly, in this video, I am gonna talk about our legend and icon, Bridget Mendler. Now, I know she does not care about having a music career. She's out there saving lives, running a space satellite company. She's literally the CEO of a space satellite startup that is allowing for the creation of more satellites to provide, I think, service in space. So she's not concerned with this, but I am. For a short time, she did do music, and she started on Disney as Juliet on Wizards of Waverly Place, who was Justin's girlfriend. We all remember those episodes. They were tearjerkers for sure. But then she transitioned to being Teddy Duncan in Good Luck Charlie. And right before Lemonade Mouth came out, Disney decided to sign her to Hollywood Records, which was super smart. So they shot the film, she was signed to Hollywood Records, and then it came out in 2011. She had the chops, she had the talent, and her debut album came out in 2012. It was titled Hi, My Name Is, and you guys know some of the songs that are on this album. Ready or Not, Hurricane, absolute bangers. It peaked at 30 on the Billboard Top 200, which I deem to be pretty good for Miss Bridget, but of course it could have done more. Ready or Not was the single that was chosen to be pushed a lot by Disney. They were playing it on the commercial breaks a lot. They gave it a lot of airplay, but I believe Hurricane is that girl. And I think that was a big mistake by Disney for pushing Ready or Not and not Hurricane the way that they did. And I truly believe that these songs hold up today. Like, there are a select few Disney Channel songs that hold up, and there's one from each of the people I talked about today that I will still stream. But she did 2 separate tours under Hollywood Records, titled Live in Concert, and then they decided to part ways at the end of that. But Bridget didn't stop music there, which a lot of people don't know. She decided to release an independent EP in 2016 titled Nemesis. And while it didn't have any commercial success, she still did a tour for it. She signed to a new management company that allowed her to actually do this because they gave her in advance. And I think that that is great because music is something that she's always been passionate about. She even says that she poured her heart and soul into this record and it was more of a passion project than anything, which I personally love. But I believe that she could have had an even better career. Her and Hollywood Records split really soon after the tours and she only released 1 album with them. But again, those songs are great. So for what she did give us, I will forever be grateful. There are so many of these stories. I wanted to focus on some of my favorite people to talk about, but this is a trope that we've seen over and over again. I mean, Debbie Ryan, China Anne McClain, Emily Osment, Mitchell Musso, Bella Thorne, Drew Seeley, Corbin Bleu, all of these people had the same failed pop star / musician thing happen to them that we have talked about over and over in this video. I believe Disney made a huge mistake back in the day by trying to force this over and over and over again. They didn't need to be signing that many people, and sometimes the choices that they made were very head-scratching. They were confusing. I believe had they played their cards differently, and instead of signing everyone, just signed a few people, poured equal amount of resources into them, and also found a way to really push them to the general public, things could have been different. I mean, they were handing out Hollywood Records contracts left and right, and they still didn't give one to Ashley Tisdale, whatever. But some of these people should have never been signed, and there should have been people who said up front, maybe I don't want to do music and I'm not going to be fully in it, because there were situations where people were kind of back and forth, the artists, and then Disney wasn't wholeheartedly supporting them. And of course, that's going to turn into a train wreck. Some of the other stories that we could get into, I might have to make a part 2 to this video. If you guys want that, definitely comment, because I could talk about a lot of other people that went through this. But I find it super interesting that Disney identified this pipeline and really got Hilary Duff to be the guinea pig for it, and after that, just fully ran full speed ahead with it. I don't think they ever really revised it like they should have. There should have been more conversations had in order to find a way to do this to guarantee mainstream success and really provide these artists what they needed, because they were only giving them limited resources, in my opinion, because they were pushing their acting projects over the music sometimes, and I think that hurt their solo careers. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for everything you've been doing so far. I have been loving this. I've been loving doing deep dives. I think it is so fun. So let me know what other video ideas you want to see, and have a great week.